What God says here is transformative for the church, particularly the church in America. The implications are that the people in your city are a part of your family. All right, so when we think about disparities, I think one of the big questions we have to ask ourselves is, does God care? And I think he does. I think when there's a disparity, a racialized disparity in particular, I think God cares. Should the church care? Should the church get involved with disparities? I already know that churches in Black and brown communities are involved with disparities. But I'm saying, as a church, as an American church, must we commit to breaking down disparities and structures? I think Isaiah 58 tells us something. Isaiah 58 is this incredible story, right, where the people of God are seeking him and they want to know him more. And then in Isaiah 58:3, they did something that many of us don't do. They started fasting as a church, as a community, as a people of God. They all start fasting like, we want to seek your face. We want to know you more. And so this is what happens in Isaiah 58. God's actually not answering their prayers. He's actually not responding to their fast. Isaiah 58:3, this is what they say. Hey, why have we fasted and you see it not? Why have we humbled ourselves and you take no knowledge of it? We're doing everything right. We're reading, we're praying, we're seeking your face. We're gathering together. We're doing everything right. We're writing books. We're doing conferences. We're doing videos. We're doing everything right. We do all these rallies. We're doing everything right, God. We're fasting. God responds to this community. And I believe he's responding to America. In Isaiah 58, verse 6, he kind of breaks down the fast. And he says, in verse 5 rather, is such the fast that I choose, a day for a person to humble himself? Is it to bow down his head like a reed and to spread sackcloth and ashes under him? Will you call this a fast, a day acceptable to the Lord? So is it just a day for you to humble yourself? Is it just a day for your group to come before God and say, we want to know you more? Is it just about you and God? And the Lord responds in verse 6. He says, is not this the fast that I choose? Is there another way to seek my face? And he says in verse 6, is this not the fast I choose? To loose the bonds of wickedness, to undo the straps of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, and to break every yoke. Notice what he says there, bonds and straps. He says there's a yoke. And he's saying that we're not actually asking where the yoke came from. We're not asking where these bonds came from. God is just concerned that there are bonds and yokes in their community, and they have disregarded it. They have walked by it. They have spent all their time seeking God's face, and they've ignored their people in their community. Because God says, I won't listen to things above you when you're ignoring the people I care that are beside you. You see, so what the Lord says is that in many ways, there are all these straps, he says. And in verse 7 of Isaiah 58, he then breaks down what a real fast is, what real piety is, what really doesn't mean to seek God's face. He says, is it not to share your bread with the hungry and bring the homeless poor into your house? When you see the naked, to cover him and not to hide yourself from your own flesh. What God says here is dynamic. What God says here is transformative for the church, particularly the church in America. He says, shouldn't you share your bread? You see, this was happening when they fasted. On every day they fasted, they said, we are not going to eat bread. Monday we won't eat bread, and Tuesday we won't eat bread, and Wednesday we won't eat bread, and Thursday we won't eat bread, and Friday we won't eat bread. And all those days we don't eat bread. And what God asks is what you do with the bread. The days that you spent not eating, there were people who couldn't eat. In other words, fasting is a privilege for people that have. When you can't eat, that's called starvation. That's what they're doing down the block. He says, what did you do with the bread? You have to rethink your resources. You have to rethink your house, invite them in. You have to rethink the way you walk and actually see the naked. You have to rethink the people around you. And so this is what he says, your own flesh. That's what he says in the end there. And I believe that our cities would transform because of the people of God if we took seriously of what he says in Isaiah 58:7. Don't hide yourself from your own flesh. You have to understand in a Hebrew context, when he's talking about his own flesh, he's talking about your family. And you have to understand in a Hebrew context, if one person advanced, the whole family advanced. It would be incongruent with the way that you think about yourself if you thought that you would be progressing in life, but leave your family behind. And so he says, you are hiding yourself from your own flesh. The way you walk past them and ignore them. The way that you moved away from them when more of them started coming in your neighborhood. The way you moved into that neighborhood when you heard that a lot of them were leaving. You hide yourself from your own flesh. The implications are that the people in your city are a part of your family. The implication as well is God is saying, you want me to look at your broken situation, and I will not until you look at their broken situation, until you look at the racialized disparities in your city and in your country. And so we take here that these words are powerful, that we cannot hide ourselves from the people around us. What will transform our cities is when we rethink, who is it that are ours? Is it your neighborhood? Is it just the little, I think that's one of the things that we have, that people say, we're just trying to take care of our city, our neighborhood. But if your church is a monolith and there's racialized disparities in your county, don't you think you ought to rethink that? At least rethink it before you go on a mission trip to Africa and dig a well there. And I believe that in this moment, the church in America can come together to destroy the yokes that are in our communities. And I believe in that moment, we'll see revival.